Ardie Savea's recently announced sabbatical from New Zealand Rugby is just more evidence of the power the Rugby Players Association has, writes Martin Devlin in this week's Playing the Ball. Martin, this is clearly a pretty good deal for Ardie and his family, not so much for New Zealand Rugby though.
Yeah, look, and I make the point loud and clear, and I wish to make it right off the off as well, that I applaud Ardie Savea and his negotiating ability. This is a fantastic deal for him. Obviously, that when he signed the 4-year deal last year, this was included in it. It's interesting to me that it only just leaks now, that it wasn't kind of announced at the time. And anyone, as I go on to say in the column, Hamish, that anyone and any employee anywhere around the world, whoever you work for, whatever you're doing, if all of us could secure a clause in our contracts where we get to fly off somewhere overseas, exotic locale, earn bucket loads of cash and come back and step straight into the job that we've just left, of course we'd take it. However, from an employment side of it, if you're looking at the management, well, they are not only just letting themselves down here, they're letting the sport down, I believe, and this is a no-win situation for them. And I'm amazed that they continue to let the tail wag the dog in terms of their elite employees dictating terms like this. If it was me and I was the CEO, and I hear all these arguments about, look, he's been a great servant and I agree with all of that. Ardie Savea is the best player in New Zealand at the moment. There's no question about that. I just adore this guy on a rugby field. But hey, being a great servant and playing great rugby, that's your job. It's like, when people talk about goalkeepers in football and say, oh, he's a great shot stopper. Yeah, that's what you get paid to do. And you get handsomely rewarded for it. To me, it's farcical that New Zealand Rugby continue to allow this. The domestic games I've outlined in several columns before, it's just falling apart at the seams here. We've got NPC finals where nobody turns up. We've got semi-finals, nobody turns up. The soul of New Zealand Rugby, the domestic game, it's just in pieces at the moment. And if the players don't play these domestic competitions, well, why on earth should we as fans bother to watch them, bother to pay pay-per-view for it, bother to buy ticket prices? It just doesn't make sense to me. I would think, great, have your fun, go and do your contract, come back, let's go for a coffee when you come back. This is how I'd behave if I was a CEO and say, and we'll sit down and we'll see whether there's a place for you. The thing with sport and professional sport and high-level, high-performance sport is the game waits for no one. You tell me one player that's gone to sabbatical to Japan or wherever when Dan Carter went to Perpignan, I think it was in 2008, that's come back and has been a better player and been able to step back into the All Blacks. None of them have. And so to guarantee any athlete 2 years away, and especially with the attrition that goes on in a position like Ardie's, that all of a sudden he comes back into a lucrative, well-paying job with supposedly the door open to the All Blacks. I mean, how on earth can you possibly even consider that in 2 years' time, any of us know what kind of state the guy's going to be in? And I think it really does, to me, let down the very fabric of the game here in terms of, if you're not interested in playing these domestic competitions, well, why should I be interested in watching them then, if that's the case?
These sabbaticals have there was a few of them a few years ago, but it seems like more and more every year as well. It seems like almost anyone can sort of negotiate them into their contract as well now. I mean, it sort of gives the appearance that this is one of only New Zealand Rugby's only bargaining chips, really, to keep some of these guys here in any capacity.
Yeah, but, and again, this is life. If you get offered something better somewhere else, you'll probably go. This idea that, if we don't let the players do this, then they will go. Well, guess what? Has there ever been a time in All Black Rugby where one player has left and has never been replaced? I mean, that's just life and that's just sport. If you want to go over, not everyone actually goes away overseas either and actually, has a great time. His brother Julian Sevilla hated it over in France. The fans booed him and he came back early. Aaron Cruden's another one that didn't actually work from overseas. And when you look at the overseas clubs at the moment, English rugby's an absolute collapse. Most of their clubs are in financial distress at the moment. The club Wasps went into liquidation or statutory management during the week. France, there's not 1,000 places open there. Look, if you want to go to Japan and play rugby for the rest of your life, the moment you leave these shores, you're an ex-All Black. You were an All Black. And your value decreases every day if that's the case. Again, I just got to make the point. If I could sign a deal like this, if you could sign a deal like this, we would. But would New Zealand Rugby let any of their other employees do this? The answer is no. They'd never let their CEO wander off and actually spend 4 months in Saudi Arabia working on the new Saudi LIV Golf Super Series League, would they? And come back to his job. So I think, letting the A-League All Blacks dictate is a mistake from New Zealand rugby. And it's also a slap in the face to everyone that actually likes the domestic competitions, and that is spectators and that is sponsors as well.
How big a threat longer term do you think this is to rugby? I mean, if you draw a parallel with cricket, the rise of 2020, the IPL, and now all these global leagues, and how you're seeing increasingly international players sort of turning away from international contracts and just wanting to play these franchise cricket leagues. I mean, the concern in cricket there is that people are going to stop playing international cricket, right? I mean, is that where we're going to head to with New Zealand rugby, do you think?
Well, I think if you look at the cricket thing, it's insidious, isn't it? You know, we've got our captain, Kane Williamson, who's injured, can't play for New Zealand, but remarkably turns up at the IPL and plays every single game, every single day, and then is late to arrive in England. And I think, that certainly contributed to his unpreparedness for that 3-test series and some of the decisions. And was his head even in the place? Look, New Zealand cricket, the gate is open and the horse is well bolted. And New Zealand rugby, are probably in the same position now where I think they've actually lost control. I finished the column and I'll say it again if people haven't read that I'm in all seriousness thinking that they perhaps should offer Adi Savia the CEO's job because he's got more power, influence and clout than the guy that's turned it at the moment.
What do you, does Silver Lake solve this problem in any way, do you think? The salaries
No, it doesn't solve it at all. Doesn't solve it at all because Silver Lake has bought the All Blacks. That's all they've bought. They're not interested in domestic rugby. They don't give a stuff about that kind of thing. The only thing that makes money in this country is the All Blacks. How can you sell a Super Rugby competition when your best players aren't there and they don't want to play it? It just doesn't make good business sense any way you look at it. It does for the player, and that's why I applaud the player if that's the case. But if I'm sitting there as CEO of New Zealand Rugby, I'm going, this is not good. We have to stop this.
Fascinating
However,
issue.
It doesn't look as though that they've got any intention of doing that, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't. And like you say, the players are just going to have this power to keep doing it, aren't they?
They're going to keep letting them do it. They're going to keep doing it.
Martin, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.